Professor Sethulego Matebesi, who is a political analyst who joins us in studio now. Prof, thank you so much for your time. Let's start by talking about the interesting dynamic that I was, looking at when it comes to Mpumalanga. Of course, this is all still too early to call at this particular stage, but you see an MK party there that is also, just kind of showing itself so far. So what do you make of that particular dynamic?
Hi, good evening, Bongi, and good evening to the viewers. What a surprise. I strongly believe that what we have seen at these early stages is indicative of the responsiveness of South African voters to a new political party that has been written off even when this election started. It has been predicted that perhaps MK will do well only in KwaZulu-Natal and perhaps here in Gauteng, but just once again indicates us, even at this early stage, and we once again caution viewers that this is at a very early stage. 12 hours after the first VD has been declared, we're now standing, the last time I checked, at 70%, at least 30% of the VDs that have been declared. But this is a good performance for the MK party at this early stages, and it will be very interesting to see at the end of the day of the elections how the final performance will look like.
You listen to some of the leaders within the ANC, for example, talking about KwaZulu-Natal as it is on screen right now, that there could be a voting around tribal lines there.
Yeah, but can we really talk about those things at this stage? I mean, we had our elections yesterday and special votes over the past 2 days. All parties have run the race. Now it's about going back to the drawing board, and I strongly believe that the level of anxiety down there and somewhere else in South Africa is at its highest. I don't want to be in the foot of a politician now in South Africa, but yet once again, South Africans have come out and demonstrated that this democracy, they are not going to take a back seat. They will actively participate in that, and we can see through the results. It's still also early days whether, and I slightly disagree would want to differ with the IEC, whether we are going to get a higher voter turnout, because yes, there might have been long queues, but there have been too many factors that I strongly believe that would have a huge impact on the final voter turnout. What would those factors be for you? One of the factors is definitely that people have applied to vote in districts other than where they normally vote, and they have been turned around. But we also know, and this is something that we have been focusing on for some time, over the past couple of especially yesterday evening, that you just have areas where it is very dangerous to be around in the evening. And if a voter station is still open at around about 9 o'clock, it does have certain potential risk for a certain individual. And I strongly believe that on the basis of that, some of them might have just made a decision to say, I would rather go home.
So when you then look at, some of what would be considered smaller parties, I mean, a number of people talk about the African Transformation Movement, for example, saying that it may have appeared small in Parliament, but also, how in some of the legal processes it was involved, making its voice heard. What do you think is likely to be the story of the ATM now?
Yeah, well, I strongly believe that they will continue with that if they do get representation at the National Assembly. But we've also seen, and I don't want to bring the EFF there, but I mean, at one stage, only 25 members of parliament. But we all know what the EFF was being capable of in terms of advancing their own narrative. And these smaller parties, that's how they projected and presented themselves to South Africans. And if you allow me, Bongi, very briefly, I mean, you're referring to small parties. There are small parties that I strongly believe that They can kiss contesting elections goodbye. One of them is COPE. I mean, a party that has come for such a long time, there should have been a trajectory, an upward trajectory. But what we have seen is that, in fact, a party like the Congress of the People has not shown any significant increase in electoral support.
So are you saying that then Mosiwa Likota, as the leader of the party, is saying that of course he's handing over the reins now? He's handing over nothing? Possibly?
Yeah, and unfortunately, but maybe within that particular system there is organizational structures that whoever is going to inherit COPE will be able to take the party forward.
What kind of COPE are they inheriting?
A bruising, bleeding COPE, but perhaps there is hope that COPE will be revived. But I can't see, not in this current political landscape, that COPE will occupy any position of significance.
Prof, it's very interesting that at this early stage as well, I mean, you look at the leaderboard, for example, you see the MK party, you see the EFF, that particular dynamic, before I even get to the IFP, but that particular dynamic there between the MK party and the EFF, a number of people were waiting to see then that, do we now see a different third largest party possibly, or do we not?
Well, there is a possibility that we may, but it's still, as I've indicated, perhaps the EFF. Yeah. But in certain provinces, I will not be surprised if it's a close contest between MK, because as I've indicated, there has been provinces where some of us strongly believe that the MK will not feature. But it seems now MK is giving, even at this early stages, some parties a run for their money. So
can we see then a situation where, in some of these particular provinces, a coalition that may keep the MK party out and maybe other political parties gather together and work together?
We should not be surprised that those negotiations have already started as soon as the first votes get out. There's a lot of things that have happened behind the scenes, and I will not be surprised, because one possible, and just to answer that particular question, is that some parties may just decide that if you've got a too dominant MK going forward, remember, we are already on the eve of your local government elections, and that is where the power lies, that is where all these financial resources lies, because of what municipalities, the mandate of municipalities. And that's why I strongly believe that perhaps there will be a push, not only from the African National Congress, but also from some opposition parties, to try and keep MK party at bay.
Quite an interesting take there, but let's see then what happens. I mean, I'm seeing right now around 30, we're at 31% when it comes to the counting. But thank you so much, Prof, for your time. Appreciate it. That is Professor Sethulego Matebesi there, a political analyst. Let's take you to this now. Former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta and former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan saying that they are confident that the IEC will be able to complete the national as well as provincial elections. The two are leading international election observer missions in the country, and both leaders commending South Africans for their patience yesterday, and when they faced around some difficulties, especially technically, at some of the voting stations.